Hello, this is Sauniks. Today we're gonna do a walkthrough of my latest track, Brightest Lights. We're gonna go through a bunch of the different stems, a little bit of the decisions behind things that went on, so you can see everything that happened into making the song. This version is unmastered, so it'll sound little more uncompressed as what you would hear on Spotify or Apple Music. So if you want to check it out on all those streaming platforms. Let's get to it and start with a playthrough of the whole song. So if you don't want to hear the song, skip ahead about 3 minutes or so. Let's go.
I'd walk through fire to be closer to you. I will never be whole till I've carved it in stone in your heart, I hope. Away from trouble that old heartache brings. Oh, but none of it matters. It's all gonna scatter and you're all I need. The feeling I'm feeling, I know it's a reason I want it the rest of our lives. The feeling I'm feeling, I know it's a reason I want it the rest of our lives. With the brightest lights, stars will gather around just to be with you. Love's the loudest sound. All the world's just noise. We will drown it out when you're holding me. Love will scream out loud. Don't hold the reason when the feelings are strong. Every piece of me shattered while searching for matter. All the webs are gone. The feeling I'm feeling, I know it's a reason I want it the rest of our lives. The feeling I'm feeling, I know it's a reason I want it the rest of our lives. With the brightest light, stars will gather around just to be with you. Love's the loudest sound. All the world's just noise. We will drown it out when you're holding me. Love will scream out loud. Love will scream out loud. Love will scream out
Awesome. So cool song. Really stoked about this one. The beat itself is actually really simple. There's not much to elements going on, and this is one of those songs where I felt that less was more, and a lot of the vocals are really driving the song forward. So speaking of vocals, let's take a look at those first. Since this song is very vocal heavy, where all of the where the vocals are driving the song, and it's more of a pop influence. There's about 35-ish vocal stems, and it consists of the leads here, a couple of edits to fill up some space, and then you have your your doubles here to really thicken up everything. And even below, you have your harmonies, which really bring the magic out of the vocals. So if we listen to just all the vocals isolated from the rest of the song, it actually sounds pretty cool.
Brightest lights, stars will gather round just to be with you. Love's the loudest sound. All the world's just noise. We will drown it out when you're holding me. Love will scream out loud.
Right on. So sounds awesome by itself. So I'm not going to dive too deeply into these, but all of these vocals are post-processed and printed to audio. So all of these waveforms look very compressed. That's not how they looked before. I can dive into more of that in a different video. If you want to see that, just let me know, and I'll do that. But generally, all the vocal stems have the same vocal processing chain mostly. And credit to Sunny Williams, who's the vocalist. She did a really good job tracking and comping these vocals. So I didn't have to do much when they came back and when she sent them to me. So it just comprised of a low cut EQ to get rid of any of the extra rumbling from her room or her microphone or setup. A Teletronics EQ, which helped a lot with reining in the peak audio and the RMS audio. This is used a lot. This compressor is used a lot on pop vocals, so it's really good for that. And then we had a peak compressor. This compressor helps rein in the peak volumes. It's not normally used for vocals, but I've been finding it works pretty well with vocals. It actually has a cool kind of texture on it. And then I use Soothe as a de-esser, which works really well in different ways than other de-essers. And then I have the Clairphonic, which is just adding some brightness. I don't know why it's popping up on my other monitor, which is a little annoying. I'll show a screenshot on screen, but all it's really doing is just boosting the airiness and the brightness of it a little bit to get more of the brightness out of her voice at the tail end of everything. So that vocal chain is basically the same. It was for all the vocal stems, with maybe slight details in EQing just to get everything to sit really nicely. They're all panned a little differently except for the lead vocal, which is in the center. It really brings the feeling of the vocalist alive. It also helps that Sunny's also really talented as well. So here's the drum bus. It may not look like much is going on this track, but all the drums are feeding through this channel. As you can see here, it's an in type of track. So all the drums come into here and they get processed together. Not much is happening, just a fielding DSP reviver, just to give it a little more saturation and cohesion between all the drums. So we can listen to this together so you can hear what all the drums sound like. So very simple drum beat, but it sounds super cool. So all these drums below, like the kick, the snare, the cymbals, all of that's getting fed through the drum bus. Sometimes that causes latency depending on your setup, but I like doing that sometimes add compression to give all the drums like a nice hug. And down here we have all the cymbals and percussion. Some of them are most of them are chopped up loops. I didn't use any samplers to build any of these, or maybe I did, I forget. But But yeah, a lot of what I like to do is I like to take drum loops usually to create inspiration, and I tend to chop them up and then chop in different samples to get like a more unique rhythmic pattern depending on the vibe of the song that I'm trying to go for, and whatever feels right. I also think that having good percussion in your song is one of the factors that really makes your song stand out. It's not something that's super audible, like the loudest elements of your track. It's more the percussion underneath that really drives the groove of the track. Because if you were to take all of this percussion out of there, the song wouldn't sound as exciting and it wouldn't flow as well. So it's something to keep in mind. And if you're a drummer, you already have a head start because you're usually more attuned to these things. Now we have the cymbals down here, a couple of cymbals to get some more impact as the song progresses and reaches its climax. And now we actually get to the melody parts where all the synths and instruments start to come in. If you remember from the chorus, there was some plucked orchestral strings. That's what this is here. It was just a contact library, not live recorded, but it was a cool idea. I think the track really complemented the track. Let's listen to it by itself. So again, this is another track that was printed to audio, so you won't actually see the instruments on here. It just has a Fielding DSP reviver just to give it some extra harmonics. And down here we have the ARP that's first gets introduced in the second verse. Yep, really cool ARP. It's not always I use a sequencer to make arpeggios, but this is one of the few times that the arpeggio I made it in a sequencer actually turned out pretty good. Normally, it doesn't work out for me, but this was one of the few times it did. In the last part of the last chorus, I added a string melody to give the song an extra flow and kind of a better conclusion, and that's what these two MIDI files here. Backstory to this wasn't in earlier versions of this song. This melody was not actually here. It got added a lot later in the process, and that's why these are the only two tracks that are still MIDI. So let's take a listen. So those strings are from East West, the company called East West. And there's two layers. There's a top layer, which is this one, and then there's a bottom layer, which is I think it's a cello. So the top layer is exactly what you would think. And then to give the melody more texture, there's a cello that's accompanying it. And as we go through this, you'll hear pumping sidechaining, and that is normal. It's just part of the mixing process. So the harmony section has more arpeggios and orchestras that accompany with the song. This orchestra doesn't come in until the second chorus, and that's because it fills up a lot of the background and makes the song feel like it has more of a lift and energy. Let's listen to that first. Coolio. And some of the stuff in the beginning, just a regular serum patch. Just an ominous keypad. And then towards the end, there's that familiar arpeggio coming back in. Some of these things, like reintroducing that arpeggio and things like that, those were decisions that were made from a musical sense to complement the song and the feeling of the song to make it tell a story better. Producing song isn't all about the technical side of things. And this was the other orchestra stab that you would hear periodically throughout the song. Now onto the bass sounds. There's a couple of things, just two things going on here. Just the regular driving bass, and then there's another layer that sits on top of it to give it extra width. That layer was the top layer to give it its extra width and punch and more excitement. And let's listen to that together. So I do have a sub track in here, but later in the production process, I actually removed it because I wanted this pluck sound, the low end and this pluck sound, to drive the bass more. So I did some funny EQing to make that happen. Unfortunately, I flattened it already, but to summarize it, I did a pretty heavy bass boost here and brought like some of this down, and a bunch of other like crazy EQ moves that wish I could show you but right now, but it would take too long to open it up. And last but not least, we have the textures and like the FX that create more of an atmosphere. And these are really only happening in the beginnings and verses of the song. Those are the more stripped portions of the song, and you can actually hear the background a little more. Most of the time when I'm doing choruses, I don't have these textures sitting in the background because when the highest energy of the song is going on, there's so much stuff going on that it defeats the purpose of having those background things because you can't even hear them anyway. So whenever a song is more mellow, it's definitely more valuable to put those in so you can add different feeling and emotion to your song. So this is the texture layer that you would hear in the beginning of the song. You might have to turn up your speaker to hear that, but it's just a bit of atmosphere. And then we have a couple of noise sweeps and a couple of other sweeps to top it all off. So that's the whole song. If there's anything in here that piqued your interest that you want me to dive in a little more detail on, just shoot me a message or leave a comment, and I'll make those in a future video, so that this can help you make better music and get your music heard more. If you have any other questions or anything, let me know, and I'll look forward to seeing you in the next video. Talk to you soon.